Imagine this. You go on a hike to the forest. After some time you come across a secluded road, and while walking down this path you see a tall abandoned building above the trees. You start imagining if there could be a secret lab inside, or some kind of a military bunker in the basement. The difference is that in real life those things probably aren't true, but in Stalker that's exactly what it is. Your imaginations have been brought into the game, and you can explore all of these places to your heart's content. It's this impression bordering real life and science fiction that makes the Stalker games unique. I wanted to make this video to bring up a few things that I think are very important to realize about what makes games good. This stems from comparing older games to modern games and seeing that much of the magic that once was so prevalent is gone. I'm not saying games can't be good without the magic, but just different and maybe not so impactful. Stalker doesn't go overboard with its fantasy elements like many other games do nowadays. It only gives you just enough to know that this isn't a normal place. I think about other games and realize how much more fictitious they are in a sense. At least Stalker's design philosophy keeps it really grounded and very reminiscent and based on real life. Things like this are very important to keep in mind and evaluate. Is it worth the immersion to make a world with too much fantasy? The zone is filled with people just like you. You are just someone, a nobody, a loner who has decided to come to the zone, either in search of riches or answers. Sure, they may call you special at points, but in the end you're just one of the many trying to survive. Right from the get-go you have nothing going for you, only the bottle of vodka and shotgun on your back. You'll feel vulnerable. You think you need to be the most wary of enemy factions, but before long you realize that the zone is the real enemy. You really feel like an adventurer, exploring uncharted territory, trying to survive in the rugged landscape, with dangers lurking around every corner. This kind of setup is so strong. When a game would make you a commander of an army during the first 5 minutes, you've already lost believability. These epic and grandiose stories get boring really fast. Even when games are setting you up on a specific path or telling through dialogue how your character acts in different situations is limiting. In Stalker, you make your own adventurer. The story itself is simple enough. Of course, the story differs a bit between the 3 games, but the principal feeling stays the same. The story is expanded further on in the mod called Anomaly, which I've been playing recently. For those of you who don't know, Anomaly is a modification of Stalker including all of the areas from all 3 games. This means that the game, or games in this case, has been modified to make a whole new client. Originally the separate games only had a set number of areas available, which differed somewhat between them. In Anomaly you can explore all of them for a much bigger map. There are a lot more changes and tweaks in Anomaly, which I'm not going to go into in this video, but it could be said that Anomaly is the definitive way of experiencing Stalker. Let's talk a bit about what you actually do in-game. Finding an artifact may not be that exciting, but it's the lore about it that matters. Curious items that can boost one's physical and mental prowess that have appeared mysteriously around the area. Really makes you wonder about the answers to the questions. What really happened here? You learn pretty soon that many of the people in the zone are actually there just to find and sell these artifacts to the outside world. The zone is also infested with seemingly dangerous rabid animals. Not only are they crafted with the right amount of terror and action that really kick up your survival instincts, but also the implications they give the story. At some point you realize that they are not simple animals, but mutants made from animals and even humans. Things straight out of a horror story. A story you would tell your friends at a sleepover. I imagine when people tell me they are afraid of dogs, I think of the dogs in Stalker. Once again, this real-life counterpart or experience that you can think back on really reinforces the real possibility of them existing. I wonder if this is why human-looking creatures are very common in real-life folklore as well. While I explore areas like marshes, forests, villages and cityscapes, filled with mutants and enemy factions, I'm thinking about how this abandoned urban environment is easy to imagine, easy to believe. Of course, it's based on a real-life location, which helps it a lot, but still the point stands. When adding more science fiction elements into the setting, it's not that hard to think of them as real. Made even stronger by thinking about how the inhabitants interact with their surroundings, sitting by a campfire playing tunes on their guitars or having a smoke by the bar. This is one of my favorite things. Seeing other stalkers just living their life or scouring the wastes for artifacts. Hearing gunshots or animals in the distance when exploring the zone makes the world feel alive. I've realized that many modern open world games use these techniques in their games too, but it just doesn't have the same impact. Sometimes the actors are too scripted or too stiff, unlike in Stalker, where they act just barely enough to make this precise feeling. Stalker has something that many games don't, a non-linear progression story. I can explore as much of the story as I want, uncovering small secrets here and there, but never really being told about what exactly is going on. There are speculations and stories told by other stalkers about what the zone really is, which in turn makes it so much more impactful when you learn more of the truth. I start thinking maybe nobody just knows, or maybe they are just keeping it for themselves for whatever reason. It's pretty crazy how small things like this can affect the storytelling. I'm like, is there a conspiracy going on, or am I just a mental asylum patient who escaped the facility? Once I uncover more of the zone and its secrets, I start realizing I am special. I know the most about the zone. Now, I am the one who is keeping secrets. Many games nowadays make your experience pretty much on rails, even if there is an illusion of choice with what paths to take or dialogue options to pick. Games like these are usually much less immersive. Sure, they are most of the time very different to Stalker and a topic in itself which I could very much go on a separate tangent on. They make these paths way too enticing so that I start regretting my choice later. I already make so many choices in real life that this can become tiring really fast. In Stalker, I only react about things that happen, not by things like, this next step requires a choice, choose A or B. In Stalker, I really reap what I sow. It's just an existence in the zone. These game-altering choices are usually a very difficult thing to pull off. It just changes the dynamic and story too much in too short of a time, in my opinion. Stalker does this well by having a very consistent experience all throughout the game. Makes you feel like you're just living there. This is what I would expect of a place like the Zone. A gloomy and alive place at the same time. A sort of a melancholic trip to somewhere I've never been, but swear I've seen. Much of what I've talked about can be contributed to the modding community, specifically the developers of Anomaly. They've really made this game into the game it always was, of course made it so much better. I probably wouldn't have returned to this game without them. Once again we see that modders are the real MVP of the gaming industry. The thousands of mods that have been made on top of Anomaly is astonishing, and they just keep refining the experience to make their own STALKER 2 in anticipation. I've been playing the mod compilation for Anomaly called Gamma here in the background. It's certainly one of the best ways to experience Anomaly. The main thing I want to leave you with is that games that tell the story itself and automatically are so much more impactful than a story that is on rails and predetermined. Games that craft a highly precise and consistent world for a specific feeling in mind. It's about color palettes and stories that are easy to believe. Monsters that reinforce each other's believability and work hand in hand to make a coherent world.